श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अश्रुत रसुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज देव की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अश्रुत रसुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अश्रुत रसुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अश्रुत रसुत शिशुमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अश्रुत रसुत शिशुमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु महाभागवत श्रील गोरक्षर बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु श्रील सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुगौर्य गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर प्रसाद वृंद की जय। नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्य रक्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री उद्धव गीत की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंद श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। सारथ-दर्शनी वृत्ति की जय। श्री भक्तिसिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। गौड़ीय भाष्य की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीश्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तर्वोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानुतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रयेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत् सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना Vrinde namaste charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I felt bad yesterday. I forgot about Indira Mataji. Anyways, she's been joining every single day, but since she's in Spain now, she can't join at the same time. Otherwise, it'd be like, yeah. So, Dandavat Pranams, Indira Mataji, Shah Sharmaji, Ganga Mataji, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantra Murti Mataji, and Madhavi Didi. Dandavat Pranams to all of you. Hari bol, everybody. All right. So, oh, and also, where's Raseshwari Mataji? I didn't see her yesterday either. I forgot to message her yesterday. Okay. So I'm going to just read the last few verses that we read. I'm just going to go over what we read yesterday. I'll just read the translations to catch us up. So, Shri Uddhava said, I'm starting from verse 26. Shri Uddhava said, O Uttama Shloka, O Lord who is glorified by select prayers, what kind of person do you accept as a genuinely saintly person? What kind of devotional service is approved by you as worthy of being offered to your lordship? O Lord of Vaikuntha, O Master of the universe, I am fully surrendered unto you and have no shelter other than your lotus feet. Kindly explain this to me. My dear Lord, although you are transcendental to material nature, and like the sky, you are never entangled in any way, you assume different forms of incarnation in this world, according to the desires of your devotees. So in answer to the question, what was the question? It was, what kind of person do you accept as a genuinely saintly person? So he's asking, who is a genuinely saintly person, and what kind of devotional service is worthy of being offered to you? And what is approved by you? What kind of devotional service is approved by you? Okay, so then the Lord now answers his first question. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Uddhava, a saintly person is merciful and is never inclined to give pain to others. Even if others are aggressive, he is tolerant and forgiving towards all. His purpose in life comes from the truth itself. He is free from envy, and his mind is equipoised in happiness and distress. He dedicates his time to work for the welfare of others. His intelligence is never bewildered by material desires, and he has learned to control his senses. His behavior is always pleasing, never harsh, and always exemplary, and he is free from possessiveness. He never endeavors like ordinary worldly people, and he strictly controls his eating, and so he always remains peaceful and steady. A saintly person is thoughtful and accepts me as his only shelter. Such a person is very cautious in the execution of his duties and is not disturbed even in a distressing situation. He has conquered over the 6 material qualities: hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. He is free from all desire for prestige, and he offers respect to others. He is expert in reviving the Krishna consciousness of others, and so he never cheats anyone. Rather, he is a well-wishing friend to all, being most merciful. Such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me in various Vedic scriptures possess favorable qualities that purify the performer, and he knows that neglect of such duties constitutes a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken complete shelter at my lotus feet, however, A saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He is thus considered to be the best among all living entities. So those are the 28 qualities. And we read two very long explanations, very in-depth explanations by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura and Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda. And then he continues, my devotees may or may not understand me in truth, how I am situated beyond the cosmic manifestation. But if they possess unalloyed devotion for me, I consider them to be great personalities. My dear Uddhav, one will be able to give up false pride by cultivating these limbs of devotional service. One should purify himself by seeing, touching, worshipping, serving, and offering prayers of glorification and obeisances to my form as the deity, as well as to my pure devotees. One should hear my glories in the association of devotees and meditate upon me. One should offer whatever he happens to possess to me, considering himself to be my eternal servant. In this way, one should surrender unto me. One should make arrangements for the celebration of festivals in relation to me. These festivals should be celebrated in the temple with singing and dancing in ecstasy. One should, in the association of devotees, visit the holy places of pilgrimage that are related to me and observe the vows meant for devotees, such as Ekadashi. One should receive initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, and if able to do so, give donations for the construction of my temples. Most importantly, one should always consider himself to be my humble servant, and thus engage for my satisfaction without duplicity. As a menial servant, one should sweep the floor of the temple and then cleanse it with water and cow dung. When the floor is dry, one should sprinkle scented water over it and then draw auspicious mandalas. A devotee should not become proud, advertising himself as an exalted soul. If one offers to me that which is most dear to him, that will please me greatly and thus advance him on the path toward eternal life. So that's an answer to Uddhav's second question, right? What is the devotional service that is fit to be offered to you, right? That was the question. O gentle one, you may worship me in the sun, fire, brahmanas, cows, Vaishnavas, sky, wind, water, earth, individual soul, and all living entities. My dear Uddhav, one should worship me within the sun by chanting the Purusha Sukta mantras, by performing worship and offering obeisances. One should worship me within fire with oblations of ghee, and one should worship the Brahmins as representing me by respectfully honoring them as guests. One should worship me within the cows by offering them grass and grains. One should worship the Vaishnavas as being non-different from me by showing them love and respect. I should be worshipped within the heart by meditation, and I should be worshipped within the air by the practice of pranayam. I should be worshipped within water by offerings of water and other paraphernalia, and I should be worshipped within the earth by the chanting of mantras. One should worship me within all living entities by seeing the Supersoul present within everyone, thus seeing with equal vision. If in this way you should worship my transcendental four-armed form, holding a conch, disc, club, and lotus, with fixed attention. So in this way you should worship my transcendental form, which holds a conch, disc, club, and lotus with fixed attention. One who worships me in full concentration by performing sacrifices and activities meant for the welfare of others, attains unflinching devotional service unto me. By rendering service to saintly persons, he achieves realized knowledge of me. So this is where we read up to yesterday. Now we'll continue from this point on. Prayena bhakti yogena satsanga Satsangena vinodhava nopayo vidyate samyak prayanam hi satam aham. O Uddhav, I am the supreme shelter and goal of life of the devotees. If one does not engage in my devotional service, which is received by the association of my pure devotees, there will be no means for his escaping material existence. Sārārtha-darśinī. The paths of Gyan and Bhakti have both been described, but here it is said that deliverance from the material existence is possible only by devotional service, which is to be performed in the association of devotees. Pure devotional service to the Lord is called Kevala Bhakti, whereas devotional service mixed with speculative propensities is called Guna Bhuta Bhakti, or devotional service polluted by the material modes of nature. Actually, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, pure devotional service automatically awards one knowledge and detachment. Devotional service, the cultivation of knowledge cannot award one perfection. Processes for spiritual perfection other than devotional service are described as being like the nipples on a goat's neck. One can never hope to get milk from such useless nipples, and one cannot achieve perfection by any process other than devotional service. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.19.9, Sri Uddhav said, Tapatrayena bhihitasya ghore santapyamanasya bhavadvanisha pashyami nanyach charanam tavangri tvandvat tapatrad amritabhivarshat. So, Uddhav is saying, this is in the previous chapter. This is in not the previous chapter. We're in chapter 12 today, so this is a few chapters ahead. Uddhav said, My dear Lord, for one who is being cruelly burned in the blazing fire of material miseries, having fallen into the network of material existence, I do not see any other possible shelter besides your two lotus feet, which are a shower of nectar extinguishing the fire of suffering. And the Srimad Bhagavatam 12.4.40, Sri Shukadev Gosvāmī has said, Sangsara sendum atidustaram utitishur nanya plavo bhagavata purushottamasya lila katha rasaniveshan pungso bhaved vivida dukkha davartitasya. For a person who is suffering in the fire of countless miseries and who desires to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, there is no suitable boat except that of cultivating devotion to the transcendental taste for the narrations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastimes. In Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.12, Narad Muni has said, Kim va yogena sankyena nyasasadvaya yorapi kim va shreyo bhiranyaischa na yatratma prado hari. Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead are useless, be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, severe austerity, the acceptance of sannyas, or the study of Vedic literature. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya commentary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. Let's see. Hare Krishna, Gopikant Prabhu, and Rohit Radha Krishnan ji. Yes, Pradyumna Prabhu. Yes. Okay, so Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead alone is the ultimate goal and shelter of saintly persons. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation are not the ultimate goals of life. Although these are desired by conditioned souls, they are full of inauspiciousness. By constantly engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord and the association of devotees, one certainly achieves the ultimate goal of life. Ataitat paramam guhyam shinvato yadunandana sugopyam abhivakshyami tvam me bhritya suhritsaka. O Uddhav, O beloved descendant of the Yadu dynasty, because you are my servant, well-wisher, and friend, I shall now reveal to you the most confidential knowledge. Please hear these confidential topics from me. Sārārtha-darśinī. The sages headed by Shaunak has said in the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in verse 8, Bruhyu snigdasya shishyasya guruvo guhyamapyuta, that a bona fide spiritual master will impart transcendental knowledge unto the heart of a sincere disciple. Uddhav had surrendered to Lord Krishna, and reciprocation, the Lord imparted to him transcendental understanding. It is a fact that only unto one who has absolute faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, one who has absolute faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, is the mystery, only to that person is the mystery of spiritual understanding revealed. Other processes of elevation are incapable of delivering the desired results, because it is only by devotional service that the Lord becomes actually pleased. Simply by accepting the association of pure devotees and working under the direction of the spiritual master, one attains all perfection of life. This is the essential understanding gained by study of this chapter. Thus ends the translation of the 5th chapter of the Uddhava-gīta, entitled Symptoms of Conditioned and Liberated Living Entities, with the commentaries of Śrīla Viśvanātha Ṭhākura, and chapter summary and purports by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Alright, so now we come to this chapter, Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. One second, I'm starting to get sleepy because I went to sleep late last night. So I'm going to just put up my laptop and I'm going to stand. That way the reading won't be so... One second. Just moving this up. Oh, Krishna. Am back. Let me make sure okay, good. Thank you guys for being patient with me. There. Now I'm all nicely set up. Now you don't need to hear me fall asleep. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. Chapter 6, Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. Chapter summary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. In this chapter, the glories of sadhu sangha and the super excellence of the Vrajavasis' ecstatic love for Krishna are described. The association of saintly devotees can destroy one's attachment to material life and can even bring the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, under one's control. Neither mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, following religious principles, studying the Vedas, performing austerities, cultivating dry renunciation, performing welfare activities, giving charity, observing vows such as fasting, worshipping the demigods, chanting secret mantras, nor visiting holy places of pilgrimage can give one the same result. In every age, there are demons, animals, birds, and other lower classes of beings who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, as well as human beings such as Vaishyas, Shudras, women, and outcasts who cannot study the Vedas. Nevertheless, by the association of saintly devotees, they can attain the supreme abode of the Lord. On the other hand, without such association, even those who very seriously endeavor for perfection in mystic yoga, the cultivation of knowledge, giving charity, observing vows, and practicing renunciation, are generally incapable of attaining the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The young damsels of Vraj, ignorant of the true identity of Sri Krishna, consider him to be their paramour. Simply by the influence of Lord Krishna's association, they attained the supreme absolute truth, which is rarely attained by even demigods like Lord Brahma. These gopis of Vraj were so deeply attached to Krishna that they considered an entire night in his association to be just a moment. When Ṭhākura took Krishna and Baladev to Mathura, the gopis considered a night in separation from Krishna to be as long as a kalpa. The gopis, who were afflicted by separation from Krishna, could not imagine anything pleasant other than Krishna's association. Therefore, the gopis' love for Krishna is certainly incomparable. After imparting these instructions to Uddhava, Lord Shri Krishna concluded by saying that he should give up the considerations of religion and irreligion as described in the Shrutis and Smritis, and instead take shelter of the example of the women of Vrindavan. Okay, so now we begin. Wow, so this chapter is all about the gopis. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Narodayati Mam Yogo Na Sankyam Dharma Evacha Na Swadhyayastapastyago Nishta Purtam Na Dakshina Vratani Yagyashchandangsi Tirtani Niyamayama Yata Varundhe Satsanga Sarvasanga Pahohimam. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Uddhava, the association of my pure devotees can destroy all one's material attachment. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotees. One may perform yoga, engage in an analytical study of the material nature, practice nonviolence, follow religious principles, study the Vedas, perform austerities, cultivate renunciation, perform fire sacrifices, undertake welfare activities, give charity, carry out severe vows, worship the demigods, chant secret mantras, and control the minds. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control." Sārārtha-darśinī by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. This chapter describes the glories of the association of devotees and the Vrajavasis' incomparable love for Krishna. The Supreme Lord said, "O Uddhava, the Ashtanga Yoga system of practicing sitting postures and controlling the mind, the Sankhya Yoga system of discriminating between matter and spirit, the practice of nonviolence, the study of the Vedas, the performance of severe austerities, the practice of renunciation, and the performance of welfare activities like digging wells, the pious act of giving charity, the observance of vows such as Chaturmasya, the performance of sacrifices, the worship of the demigods, and the chanting of Vedic mantras cannot control me." The word rodhayati in this verse is singular, indicating that it should be applied separately to each of the principles. The word rodhayati in this verse is singular, indicating that it should be applied separately to each of the processes described. What does rodhayati mean, though? Anyways. The Supreme Lord said, "O Uddhava," oops. The word rodhayati in this verse is singular, indicating that it should be applied separately to each of the processes described. It could be the plural of rodhayanti because of the other plural word in this verse, vratani. The word ruddha means to control. The Lord therefore says, "Activities like yoga cannot control me. I am not controlled by Ashtanga yogis. They cannot attain my shelter." This is the purport of this verse. So rodhayati means controls, I guess. Huh? The Supreme Lord said, "O Uddhava, The study of Sankhya and the following of religious principles also cannot control me. Study of the Vedas, performance of austerities, and a life of renunciation do not enable one to attain my shelter. The powerful process of devotional service is the only method of controlling me and is pleasing to me. It is an established fact that I am attained only by devotional service and by no other means. One who simply associates with my pure devotees pleases me. And so what can be said of those who render devotional service to me in the association of devotees? One advances on the path of devotional service in the association of devotees. Although activities like practicing yoga contain some degree of devotion, I am not controlled by the mixed devotion of such practitioners. Thus, the word yata has been used in this verse, indicating that only when activities are performed in pure devotion are they fully pleasing to the Lord. Because the association of devotees destroys all of one's material attachment, it enables one to bring me under control. Now, Gauḍīya Bhāṣya commentary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. The relationships we establish in this temporary material world are not eternal, nor are they actually beneficial. The association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is attained by the association of his associates. The various methods for attaining perfection in life, such as the atheistic Sankhya philosophical system, the theistic Sankhya philosophical system, the performance of major and minor religious duties, the study of the Vedas, the performance of penances, cultivating a life of renunciation, engaging in welfare activities, giving charity, performing sacrifices, chanting Vedic mantras, taking bath in holy places, and controlling the mind and senses. All these practices are not as effective in pleasing the Lord as the association of his pure devotees. The Supreme Lord is unconquerable, but he is controlled by the love of his pure devotees. All methods for achieving the ultimate goal of life that are followed by non-devotees cannot purchase the favor of the Supreme Lord. All methods for achieving the ultimate goal of life that are followed by non-devotees cannot purchase the favor of the Supreme Lord. So, just checking everything's running okay. All right. Satsangena hidaiteya yatu dhana mriga khaga Gandharvapsaraso nagha siddhascharana guhyaka vedadhara manusheshu vaishya shudra striyontaja rajastama prakritayas tasmin yuge yuge Bahavo matpadam praptas tvashchara kaya dhavaidaya Vrisha parva balirbano mayaschata vibhishana Sugrivo hanuman riksho kajo gridro vanikpata Vyadha kubja vraje gopyo yagya patnyas tata pare. In every yuga, many of those who were influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, including demons, animals, birds, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas, Vidyadharas, Vaishyas, Shudras, women, and others, were able to come back home, back to Godhead, due to gaining the association of my devotees. Vritrasura and Prahlad Maharaj also attained my transcendental abode due to the association of devotees, as did Vrishaparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasura, Maya, Vibhishan, Sugriv, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhara, Dharmavyadha, Kubja, the gopis of Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmins that were performing sacrifices. One second, I just need to stand on something. Okay. One second. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary. These 4 verses describe how the Supreme Lord is directly controlled by the gopis of Raj, and indirectly by demons like King Bana. Those who are kinds of saint activities based on devotional service, and those who are engaged in pure, unalloyed devotional service. The controlling power of the former is indirect, whereas the controlling power of the latter is direct. The word yatudhana refers to demons, such as Tvashura and Vritrasura. Prahlad received the association of Sri Narad even before his birth. Soon after his birth, Vrishaparva was rejected by his mother. He was then brought up by a sage and became a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Bali Maharaj attained the association of Prahlad Maharaj. All these examples are given in the Puranas. When King Bana's arms were being cut off, he received the association of Mahadev. While constructing their assembly house, the demon Maya had the association of the Pandavas. Vibhishan received Hanuman's association. The monkeys headed by Sugriva received Lakshman's association. Gajendra, the king of the elephants, received the association of Sri Narad in his previous life. The giant bird Jatayu had Garuda's and Dasharath's association. The stories of Vanika and Tuladhar are narrated in the Mahabharata, but it is unclear whose association they had received. The story of Dharma Vyadha, the non-violent hunter, was described in the Varaha Puran. In a previous life, he had somehow become a Brahman Rakshasa, or a Brahman ghost, but he was eventually saved. In a previous Kali Yuga, he had the association of a Vaishnav king named Vasu. In the Hari Vangsha, it is stated that in her previous life, Kubja had the association of Narad. The sages of Dandakaranya, who appeared as gopis in Vraj, had the association of many saintly persons in their previous life, and the association of eternally perfect gopis in their next life. The wives of the Brahmins who were engaged in performing sacrifice had the opportunity to associate with Krishna's messengers, Mali and Tambuli, when they went to Mathura on business. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Simply by the influence of the devotee's association, all of one's incompetence is destroyed, so that one became qualified to attain the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Te nadhita shruti gana nopasita mahatama avratap tapasa matsangan mam upagata. These persons did not study the Vedas, worship saintly persons, or perform terrible austerities. They had attained my association simply as a result of the association of my devotees. Wow, so we don't need to go through intense austerities or... Interesting, it says they did not study the Vedas, they did not worship saintly persons. But I guess those means just saintly persons who aren't particularly devotees, and they didn't perform austerities. All they had attained was association. They attained my association simply as a result of the association of my devotees. Okay, Sārārtha-darśinī. According to the advancements they made by means of sadhu sangha, the above-mentioned persons either achieved mixed devotional service or pure devotional service. There was no need for them to follow other sadhans. They did not study the Vedas, which indicates that they did not approach sages who were well acquainted with the Vedas. Similarly, they did not perform any austerities or execute any vows. They developed devotional service simply by the association of the Lord's devotees, and thus ultimately attained his shelter. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Without following any other sadhan, simply by the influence of the devotee's association, one can attain the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Whoa, it's been cutting out, huh? Sorry about that, guys. If it cuts out really bad, let me know, because my dad lent me his phone so that I could use his hotspot. No, Gopikant Prabhu, I'm just seeing your question here. It says, Do the devotees situated in lower rasas, such as Shanta and Dasya, also control the Supreme Lord? Can they have influence over his decisions? No, they can't. Just like in Dhammadarashtakam. How does that verse go? Iti dirik swalilabhir ananda kunde swa gosham nimanjantam akhyapayantam tadiyeshitar geshu bhaktar jitatvam puna prematastam shatavriti vande. So Krishna, by his pastimes like performing Damodar Leela, he shows, he akya payantam, he makes it known to everybody that tadi yeshitad geshu, he makes it known to all those who are aware of the godhood of Krishna, that bhaktar jitatvam, that he is only controlled, he's only conquered by bhakti, and that's referring to the bhakti of, especially of the Vrajavasis and like that kind of pure bhakti. But those who are aware of his godhood, like in Shantaras and offering prayers, he's not controlled by that. And he's not, Krishna, also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are many verses that says, what is it? Nahi mora prita. Aishwarya Shatila Prem, Nahi mora prita. That prem, that love which is mixed with Aishwarya, with opulence, majesty, like with awe, like that, Nahi mor prita, it does not please me. And then he goes on to say how only that's a whole section in the 4th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, but it explains this point very beautifully, if you want to look it up ever. Okay. Kevalena hi bhavena gopyo gavo naga mriga yenye murdha diyo naga siddhamam iyoranjasa. All of the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis, the cows, trees and plants, animals and serpents, very easily attained life's perfections because of their love for me. Sārārtha-darśinī. Oops. Hare Krishna, Stephen Tracy. Okay, so the unique position of the gopis is herein described. The word kevala means devoid of karma and gyan, or in other words, pure devotional service without any tinge of material desire. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered in the moods of Shringar, Vatsalya, Sakya, and Dasya. The gopis attains the Lord by serving him in the mood of Madhurya Ras, the cows in the mood of Vatsalya Ras, Govardhan Hill and the deer in the mood of Sakya Ras, the trees and creepers of Vrindavan, as well as the Kaliya serpent in the mood of Dasya Ras. The gopis referred to in this verse are the eternally perfect gopis. Indeed, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan should be considered eternally liberated souls, as expressed by the word siddha, which means having achieved the perfection of life. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. God. Yamna yogena sankhena dana vrata tapo dvarai vyakhya swadhyaya sannyasai prapnuyad yatnavan api. Even though others engaged with great endeavor in the mystic yoga system, philosophical speculation, giving charity, executing vows and penances, performing ritualistic sacrifices, teaching the Vedic mantras to others, a personal study of the Vedas, or the renounced order of life, these people could not achieve me. Sārārtha-darśinī. Even if one faithfully practices the yoga system, one cannot attain the devotional service of the Lord. Association of devotees is the only criteria for attaining pure devotional service, and not any other discipline or pious activity. This is the purport of this verse. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Even if one carefully studies the atheistic or theistic Sankhya philosophy, If one gives charity, observes vows, undergoes austerity, performs sacrifices, studies the Vedas, and explains the Vedic literature to others, one will still not attain the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Ramena sardam maturam pranite Shvafalkina mayanurakta chitta Vigada bhavena name viyoga Tivradhayonyam dadrishu sukhaya. When Akrura took me to Mathura along with my brother Baladev, the gopis, whose hearts were completely attached to me, felt severe mental agony due to separation from me. They thus could not consider any source of happiness other than my association. Sārārtha-darśinī. That the devotional mood of the gopis is the topmost form of devotional service is being stressed in these 4 verses. When Krishna was brought to Mathura by Akrura, the gopis could not see anything that would give them happiness because of their love for Krishna was so intense. The gopis were situated on the platform of Adiruddha Mahabhav. In such a loving condition, they felt severe mental agony due to separation from their beloved Krishna. Because this verse is spoken in the past tense, it is understood that the gopis rejoined Krishna after the killing of Dantavakra. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. No one who desires actual happiness can achieve his goal of life without engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, who is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. The gopis, whose attachment for Krishna was intense, felt unlimited distress because of separation from him when he and Balaram left for Mathura with Akrura. Tasta kshapa prishtatamena. No. What's the meter for this? Tasta kshapa prishtatamena nita mayaiva vrindavana gocharena kshanardavatta puna angatasam hina maya kalpasama babhuvu. Dear Uddhav, the nights that the gopis spent with me in Vrindavan appeared to them to be no more than a moment. Now, in separation from me, a night appears to them to be longer than a kalpa. Sārārtha-darśinī. On the topmost platform of love of God, there are symptoms such as Adiruddha Mahabhav. Even a kalpa seems like a moment because of attachment for Krishna. And the same moment appears like a kalpa in separation from Krishna. Lord Krishna says, although the gopis spent an entire night of Brahma with me enjoying the rasa dance, they considered it to be less than a moment. This was their experience when they were with me in Vrindavan. And yet, the gopis considered the same one moment to be more than hundreds of yugas whenever Krishna went to the pasturing grounds to tend the cows. It keeps on cutting out, isn't it? I'm really sorry about that. Should I change my connection? Has it been cutting out a lot? I'm not familiar with UG Krishnamurti. Stephen Tracy, I'll come back to your comments after because I don't want to break up the reading, but I'll come back to this after. Yeah, regarding Siddha, yeah, I'll talk about that after. Tanavidamai anushanga baddha dhiya samatmanamadastatetam yata samadho munayobdhito ye nadya pravishta ivanama rupe. Just as sages, by means of samadhi, forget the names and forms of this world because of their full absorption in the self, like rivers merging into the ocean, the gopis were so attached to me that they could not even think of their own bodies, their lives in this world, are their future lives. Sārārtha-darśinī. It is stated in Uddhava-gīta that forgetfulness without any question of illusion is a feature of Adiruddha Mahabhav. This is being described in this verse, wherein it is said about the gopis, "Their intelligence was captivated by my association." Here, the word baddha, or captivated, means that the propensity of the intelligence has become more enthusiastic due to the enchanting pastimes of Sri Krishna. These propensities of the intelligence are just like the wish-fulfilling cows that fulfill all of Krishna's desires. The gopis could not know who they were, where they were, or where they had come from while performing the ras dance. They transgressed all worldly etiquette, shyness, fear, and so on, just like sages who forget everything when they realize Brahman while in samadhi. The gopis herein compared to sages in samadhi. The gopis are herein compared to sages in samadhi because they both exhibit the sages and the gopis both exhibit single-minded concentration. Actually, the ecstatic love of the gopis is far superior to the dry meditation of the sages who are trying to liberate themselves from the material body. The gopis did not possess material bodies because they were personally dancing with the Supreme Lord and embracing him. It should be very well understood that the bliss of impersonal Brahman realization hardly equals a tiny fragment of the ocean of ecstatic love of Krishna. The Supreme Lord comes under the control of his pure devotees. The sages were not attached to the Supreme Lord, and so they could not control him with their love. Rivers enter the ocean, losing their separate identity. This is an example to illustrate how devotees become fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and thus relish the mellows of devotional service without any concern for their personal existence. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The gopis, whose hearts were fully attached to Krishna and who were thus in a trance of meditation upon the service of the Lord, completely forgot about their relatives as well as their gross and subtle bodies. They forgot about their personal existence, their names, forms, and so on, just as a river loses its identity after entering the ocean. Wow. They even forgot their names. That's really beautiful, though. Just as a river loses its identity after entering the ocean. Matkama ramanam jaram asarupo vido bala brahmamam paramam prapu sangachchatta sahasrasha. All those hundreds of thousands of cowherd girls, although ignorant of my actual position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, attained me simply by desiring my association as their paramour. Sārārtha-darśinī. Shri Krishna herein explains how the gopis attained his shelter. The gopis desired nothing but me, the Supreme Brahman. How did they attain me? I enjoyed pastimes with them, and thus they experienced great happiness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Shukadeva Gosvāmī said, after seeing the beauty of Vrindavan, Krishna desired to enjoy his Ras Leela pastimes. Although Krishna is self-sufficient, he enjoyed the Ras dance with the gopis. Did the gopis enjoy Krishna's company as a husband? No, as a paramour. What was the essential characteristic of the gopis? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the gopis were so attracted by my sweetness and beauty that they forgot about my opulent features. Otherwise, it would have not been possible for me to enjoy their company. Although they were the most beautiful girls in the creation, they forgot about their own beauty, being attracted by my beauty. This is what is being indicated by the word asvarupa-vidha, not understanding my actual position or form. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Because of their strong desire to please Krishna, the gopis, who were completely absorbed in the service of the Lord and who had only one goal in life, attains the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The gopis were many, and the Lord was one. Following their example, innumerable persons of a similar nature attains the association of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Sorry, I moved the word supreme. Although from an external point of view, the gopis may be considered as women attached to a man other than their husband, because they took shelter of the supreme enjoyer, their conduct is always to be glorified. Tasmatvam udarutsrijya. Chodanam pratichodanam pravrittim cha nivrittim cha shrotavyam shrutameva cha mamekam sharanam atmanam sarvadehinam yahi sarvatma bhavena mayasya hyakuto bhaya. Therefore, my dear Uddhav, abandon the mantras of the Shrutis and Smritis, as well as the rules and regulations prescribed in the supplementary Vedic literature. Disregard all that you have heard and all that is to be heard, and just surrender unto me alone, because I am the supersoul of all living entities. By taking shelter of me, you will certainly be freed from fear. You will certainly be freed from fear in all circumstances by my mercy. Sārārtha-darśinī. After Sri Uddhav had inquired about the characteristics of a saintly person, the Supreme Lord, Krishna, describes the characteristics of the two classes of transcendentalists, the methods for executing devotional service in the association of devotees, and how devotional service has the power to control him. The Lord next describes the good qualities of the devotees and concluded that the gopis' devotion to him is the topmost platform of love of God. The Lord further described how, when he was being taken along with Balaram by Akrura to Mathura, the gopis shed incessant tears due to impending separation from him. The gopis were greatly agitated due to feelings of ecstatic love and separation from the Lord, and thus their devotional service could not control him. Here, Lord Shri Krishna is trying to inspire Uddhav to follow in the footsteps of the gopis, and thus render devotional service as they did. Shri Krishna said to Uddhav, "Give up the rules and regulations prescribed in the scriptures, and give up all recommended and prohibited activities mentioned in the Vedas." Does this mean that Uddhav should take sannyas? No. It means that he should give up the activities that are prescribed for both householders and sannyasis, and he should become indifferent to all that has been heard, as well as all that may be heard in the future. In this way, Uddhav should abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to Krishna in the mood of one of the 5 rasas. Then he will have no fear. Then he will have no fear by Krishna's mercy. He should not think that he will be the loser by rejecting fruitive activities and the cultivation of knowledge. The Supreme Lord is there to protect his devotees from all types of fearful conditions. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. After carefully deliberating on that which was spoken by the Supreme Lord, one should simply surrender himself at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing that this will eradicate all lamentation, illusion, and fear. Taking shelter of too many persons will not award one any real benefit. Rather, by taking shelter of the son of the king of Raj alone, who is one without a second, one will easily be liberated from the hands of all inauspiciousness. Okay, we're going to end on this verse 16 here. Shri Uddhava uvacha Saṅśaya Shinvato vacham Tava Yogeshvareshvara Na Nivartata Atmasto Yena Brahmyati Me Mana. Shri Uddhav said, "O Lord of the foremost yogis, even after hearing your statements, the doubt in my heart has not gone away, so my mind is bewildered." Sārārtha-darśinī. Uddhav says, "My dear Lord Krishna, you had first recommended that I perform my duties according to the Varnashram system. But then you advised me to give up these activities and take to the advancement of knowledge. Now you seem to be rejecting the path of Gyan and recommending that I surrender unto you and practice bhakti yoga. If I accept this path, how do I not know that in the future you will not once again recommend that I perform my worldly duties? So why do you keep on changing the process that you're telling me to do?" Such frank talk indicates Uddhav's intimate relationship with Lord Krishna. How do I know you're not going to tell me to do something else after you explain bhakti yoga to me? Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. In the first verse of the 4th chapter, the Lord said that one should take shelter of him while continuing to perform one's prescribed duties within the Varnashram system without material desire. Uddhava took this to mean karma mishra bhakti, our devotional service mixed with fruitive activities. Of course, if one has not yet realized that Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes, there is no question of renouncing worldly responsibilities. Such a person is encouraged to offer the fruits of his work to the Lord. In the 4th verse of the 4th chapter, the Lord recommended that one give up his worldly duties and engage in the cultivation of knowledge. Uddhava took this to mean Gyan Mishra Bhakti, our devotional service mixed with speculative knowledge. Beginning with verse 35 of the 4th chapter, beginning with verse 35 of the 4th chapter, we're in the 6th chapter now, Uddhava inquired about the 2 conditions of existence, material bondage and liberation. In response, the Lord explains that without devotional service, mere philosophical speculation cannot enable one to attain perfection. In verse 18 of chapter 5, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead was extolled. And in verse 23, Krishna recommended hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. The Lord concluded by saying that the association of devotees is essential for spiritual advancement. In verse 26 of the 5th chapter, Uddhava inquired about the details of devotional service and the characteristics of perfection. And in verse 48, the Lord Krishna stated that only engagement in devotional service awards one. Finally, in verse 14 of this chapter, the Lord firmly rejected both fruitive activities and mental speculation. And in verse 15, he recommended that one surrender unto him unconditionally. After receiving so many instructions, Uddhava appears to be bewildered about what he should actually do. For this reason, Uddhava requests Lord Krishna to clearly tell him exactly what he should do. And so we'll hear Shri Krishna's response to Uddhava's question tomorrow. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Uddhava, the Supreme Lord is situated within the hearts of all living beings. It is only by his presence that the life air functions, so that the physical processes continue to function. The Lord's subtle presence within the heart can be perceived by seeing how the mind is under superior control. The Lord also appears as the sound of the Vedas, which is composed of short and long vowels and consonants." So we'll hear the rest of Krishna's answer tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Juki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Juki Jai Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashishmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashishmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmar Bhakti, sorry, I spaced out for a second. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai Nityalla Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannathas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nugagoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Patadasha Guna Shar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namachay Srila Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Uddhava-gīta ki jai, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Prema, Shri Sarva Vraja Devi Gan ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradu Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Okay, let me look at the... Oh my God, there is a very long discussion going on here. I do not have time to go through all of this because, I mean, maybe I'll read through it later, but they started serving out breakfast, and so I'm going to go for that. I'm already late, and they're going to serve out, and I have a meeting in 20 minutes from now. So I'm sorry I can't get to everything, but I'm just going to go through this one question. Or is it Gopikant Prabhu? Let's see what he's asking. Question: can we forget? Can we forget about Vrajendra Nandan Krishna? Can we forget that Vrajendra Nandan Krishna is a supreme Lord while we are still in sadhak bodies? And what else? Just to fully enter in the Braj mood? Okay, so, yeah. At our stage, we must always keep our focus on the goal, what we're trying to attain. But we should never falsely pretend to become like, oh yes, Krishna, he's just a debauchee, la la la, like try to pretend to be like the Vrajvasis who forgot the godhood of Krishna, who just see Krishna as a sweet cowherd boy. Thanks. Like that's, so I'm a bit tired, so my mind's not really fully sharp. but this, as we make progress under the guidance of somebody who's really on that level of like who is a Vrajvasi himself, or at a very high level, like past Bhav, then gradually these kinds of things will start to happen automatically. But in a sadhak body, maybe at a very, very high stage, then maybe sometimes, I don't know, I don't have an exact answer, but I mean, even there's points in Srimad Bhagavatam where the Vrajavasis become aware of Krishna's godhood for a short amount of time, and then it quickly gets covered over by Yogamaya, right? And so, yeah. But we should always do everything in a very natural way and automatic. If we try to imitate, that's right. There's two things. There's anukaran and there's anusaran. Anukaran means to imitate. If we try to imitate the Vrajvasis, we try to forcefully make ourselves. That's sahajya. That's like prakrit sahajya, and we're very against that, right? But we want to anusaran. We want to follow in the footsteps. That's very different than imitating. And then naturally, automatically, all these things will happen. And yes, one day we will forget Krishna's godhood. I don't know. I can't give an exact answer though. Like if that happens, at what stage that happens. Probably at the stage of prem, one forgets Krishna's godhood, and prem can't be contained within this body, right? But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if that was a very satisfactory answer. That's just what came to my head right now. But all right, I am very late now. I better run. Thank you all for staying with Jai Shri Radhe. See you all tomorrow.